our next performer tonight.
So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to welcome back Penny Faulkner.
The first poem I'm reading is it's a poem about spring, but it's not the kind of spring we've been having today. This is called Spring in Ontario. I lived in Canada for a year when I was doing my degree. I did an exchange year abroad, and I was living in somewhere called Kingston, which is about 3 hours east of Toronto. So it gets quite cold there in the winter. And then it kind of turns into summer very quickly, and there's not that much of a spring. The poem I'm reading is called Spring in Ontario. The snow is melting into a chill dampness, a salty mash that creeps up trouser hems, insidious as dismay. Dripping gables stain the corner of each second. Front yards as white as oblivion crumple and fold into mud, and a scattering of blue flowers blazes like nubs of gas turned to a low heat. The hospital chimney is a black limb thrown towards the sky, the colour of molten iron. From the lake comes the sound of gunshots. The ice is breaking. Oh. There seem to be quite a lot of weather poems, which feels like a very kind of English thing to have. The next poem, I think I wrote it around the time when I turned 30, and it was kind of came out of thinking back about my 20s and about the way that there can be quite a lot of expectations on your 20s, I think, in terms of what you'll achieve and what you'll become. And I guess, like a lot of expectations, that is quite a hard thing to actually live up to, and maybe we always imagine things, you imagine life to be easier and more perfect than it can be. But this poem is called Enough Blue Sky. Scrappy mongrel clouds tussle over scraps of sky as a wire dotted with starlings pings open into flight. In the fields stands a bridge, propped up alone in the middle of munching cattle. There are rumours about a road. In a circle, the first and the last become neighbours, and I am ready to stake my claim to the front of the line. Whippet alert and eager, plaited and checked and waiting beneath this rare summer sky, and grazed by clouds. The morning's clarity has curdled into pump cream puffs, but you sip your coffee, measure the blue with flicks of your eyes. There's enough blue to make your husband a suit. It'll be a fine day. This is, I think it's the most recent poem out of all of these. I've been wanting to write it for a while, but I think sometimes poems need quite a lot of time just to sort of ferment in your mind, and you suddenly hit a point when you're almost ready to write them, and they're quite easy to write. So I've tried to write this a few times and it's never really got anywhere, and then I sat down again the other week and it actually came together into a poem. This is another spring-themed one, and this poem is called Magnolia. We have tamed waiting into the bland slab of resignation, yielding and necessary as a lozenge of soap, the canned tint of compromise, stacked in bulk on the lowest shelves. A beige cul-de-sac hunkers into a March afternoon, houses like milky-eyed cats guarding their patch of land. Yellow knots of daffodils punctuate front gardens. A magnolia stretches out its branches as if measuring the sky, a candelabra of ivory goblets held out for the sunshine to fill. The main road purrs and coughs with purpose. An uncurling petal beckons me to attention. Enough time?
Yes, you've got loads of time.
Kind of moving on seasonally. So this is a poem that when I wrote it, I was thinking about some time I spent in South Africa when I was 18. I went away with my school for a month and we spent quite a lot of time hiking in the Drakensberg Mountains, which is a big mountain range in South Africa, and we were there sort of July, August time. So by that time it had sort of gone beyond being beautiful and green and had actually become quite sort of arid and bleak and dry. And so this poem, I guess, is sort of drawing on that landscape that wasn't beautiful but was beautiful at the same time. It's called The Dry Season. We crave shelter from a sweeping spine of rock that is parched and summer-weary. Blades of grass, threadbare banners, abandoned in the dust as spring retreated. There is no birdsong, just the rattle of dried food, the pop and spit of water boiling over shards of flame as the sun slips westwards and twilight sweeps the blue and orange of this place to black and the sky to stars. They crowd across the night like sequins and glitter in the hands of a child who has never learned that less is more. We raise our dirty, sunburnt faces and feast on wonder. A chilly dawn and aching limbs awake us, stars fading out to faith in a blank sky. The next poem is a South London poem from anyone who is from South London. It's based on Ruskin Park, which is a park in Camberwell that's right next to King's College Hospital until quite recently, until the hospital had its own helipad. Any patients being taken to the hospital by air ambulance were taken into Ruskin Park. So that gives you an idea of how close it is, and I think they used to sort of rush out and wheel them in on a stretcher. And this poem came out of a time when I was there, and a friend of mine was playing in a wind band that were playing on the bandstand there, and one of the pieces that they played was Nimrod from the Enigma Variations. And so this poem, I guess, sort of evolved out of that. Ruskin Park. The music flickers across the park like a besom broom until all the dust and crumbs of the week lie in a low mound in the middle of the floor. On the bandstand, bodies do as they are told. Lungs deflate, lips hold, tongues lift and fingers press sound into music, a microscope for grief. Hope unfolds its many layers like a time-lapse film, each goblet of petals held out towards light, then collapsing slowly, spreading itself like hands. A cacophony of play scrambles and swings through coloured bars as the ending comes, like a door closed gently upon dreaming, the last breath held on the slightest turn of a wrist. Okay, the last one is a complete change of subject, no more seasons. When I wrote this poem, I wrote it for another Southwark Stanza meeting and read it there, and there was a lot of debate about whether it was clear enough, whether it needed more clues about what it was about. And I haven't really put many more clues in it, so I hope that it isn't complete nonsense when you're listening to it. And if you can't make head or tail of it, do come and find me and I'm happy to explain. But I don't want to explain now because I sort of think it will spoil it if I tell you exactly what it was about. So I'll just dive in and read it. It's called Blood Feud. You held a code that no one found, lacked a vital coronet of antigens, and so unease seeped into your bloodstream, stirring rebellion within the sluice gate of your heart. Your cells cut copies as teeth are cut in a key, causing you to lose your grip and miscarry of your saviour, a slick red bundle slipping free of its fate. Here lies your battlefield, a blackening pool congealing beneath birdsong and hawthorn blossom, a phrase turned on itself with a splatter of ink, a wax seal that has not yet set.
Penny was saying earlier she'd written a number of new poems just for tonight, or working towards tonight, so I think it's been well worth hearing them. So more applause, please.